Shomrabyug.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Sherlock. Sure, listen, the podcast that takes a pop at culture. Sure, look. Sure, listen.
Sure look, sure listen.
Sure look, sure listen.
Sure look, sure listen.
Sure look. Sure listen.
Sure look, sure listen.
Sure look, sure listen. Oh, very exciting, Benjamin. Perhaps the most exciting episode of the year because it's the 5th episode of spooky season and the last episode we have to do about horror and horror tropes for another 11 months at least. But you look,
It's
Benjamin,
been a long October. Fuck.
fucking long. It's always a long October,
Oh,
Benjamin. That's the thing about October, isn't it? That was the original name of that Tom Clancy book. It was The Hunt for Long October. And then he went, nah, don't worry about it. They're actually all long. So every fucking October, 5 weeks of fucking Halloween. Anyway, Benjamin, look, we don't have time to lament Tom Clancy's naming conventions for his books because we've loads of stuff to look at this week, including, I've seen, but you haven't, Venom: The Last Dance. And I tell you what, we're not going to go heavily into spoilers, but it's fucking rubbish. You're going to review a comic book, Absolute Wonder Woman. You've put Absolute Wonder Woman here on the running order, Ben, and I thought to myself, Ben's got his mam. He's just going to review his mam because he's always saying, you know what? No, my mam, she's an absolute Wonder Woman. But no, apparently that's the name of a comic. And then we're going to have a look at 2 trailers. One for Interior Chinatown, which is a great name and looks fascinating, but is tarred by association with Taika Waititi. And we got a trailer for Severance Season 2. This time, they're wearing their Backrooms influence on their sleeves.
Yeah, folks. Sure, listen. If that's not
What?
enough, Michael, it's time for a classic of this podcast, Exhumed. Taking a look at just a horny little film, Michael.
Oh, go on.
In every sense of the word, both in
Yes.
devilry and sexual titillation alike, Michael. We are reviewing the cult classic film Witches of Eastwick from 1987, starring none other
Go on.
than the reason you are sometimes awake at 2 a.m., Michelle Pfeiffer.
Michelle Pfeiffer's in it, Benjamin.
Fucking musical sensation and recent inductee to the Rock Hall of Fame, Cher.
Oh, go on, yeah.
Yeah. And absolute feminist icon.
Not in this, though.
No, not in this. Susan Sarandon.
Susan Sarandon. And Jack Nicholson, of course.
And the horniest, most grotesque little fella you could find, Jack Nicholson, who happens to be playing the devil.
Very good. That's because Leonardo DiCaprio hadn't come of age yet. Speaking of horny, grotesque little fellas.
Michael, that's a great fucking point. If this film was remade today, it would be fucking Sydney Sweeney, Zendaya. But one of them, I'd say, just to throw a spanner in the works, Michael, one of them would be gay. We'd have Timothée Chalamet as a young gay man.
Oh,
trio
very
of witches.
good. Mm.
And Leonardo DiCaprio would be spot on as
Yeah,
Daryl Van Horne in this. And you know what, Michael? It'd be real awkward for Leonardo DiCaprio because about halfway through shooting, he'd turn around and he'd go, "What do you mean this is a film? I was told
What
it
do you
was a
mean this
series of young actresses in their 20s.
What do you mean this is a film? I thought this was a documentary about the real life of me, actor Leonardo DiCaprio, and I've just come to town. Benjamin, look, we've
Michael,
no time to
you've
keep
skewered
laying into Leonardo DiCaprio. Keep laying into him, Ben. Anyway, look, give us a review. Unless you're Leonardo DiCaprio, then you might want to leave it out, to be honest.
If you enjoy a spot of DiCaprio bashing like we do,
and who doesn't?
ladies and gentlemen, you might just like this podcast. And that means that you should probably leave us a review wherever you listen. Go on. If you're on Spotify, give us 5 stars. If you're on Apple Podcasts, write us a little review, ladies and gentlemen. Go on out of that.
Go on.
Give it a
Give us
go.
a dig
Right?
out. Give us a dig out.
If you're on the YouTubes or the Spotifys and you don't feel like leaving a review, but you do feel like boosting our engagement because you think, God, I like this insightful deep dive into a classic cult film like The Witches of Eastwick.
Oh, Ben, I don't know if it's going to be insightful.
like this shallow, near
Yeah.
vacuous, pointless review of a
Yes.
classic film from
Yeah, that's fair.
1987, The
That's more
Witches
honest.
of Eastwick. Yeah,
Mm.
go down there and leave us a comment. Write to us. If you didn't enjoy our vacuous, empty review of The
Yeah.
Witches of Eastwick, leave us a comment down below there. Go on.
Yeah, just call Ben any sort of name you want. He's very sturdy.
I'm very sturdy at this point. I've done a podcast with young Michael Leonard for 8 years.
8 years. If you can't handle that, if you can get through that, you can get through anything. Benjamin, speaking of getting through that and then getting through anything, you forced me to watch 1987's The Witches of Eastwick this week.
Yeah, yeah, I did.
You
Yeah.
absolute son of a bitch. I tell you what,
really
I don't love
like
this. Did you?
I like this.
Oh, go on.
I
then.
like this. And we'll get into it on this bloody podcast, I'll tell you that much, Michael.
All right.
So,
then.
look, I think this shares similar territory,
Oh.
Michael.
Cher, very good.
I think this shares similar territory with the likes of Hocus Pocus.
Death becomes
Her. A trifecta of kitsch perfection that not well received during its time in the same way, Michael, but has become a diamond of kitsch 80s occultism. Yeah. I think that's all. I think I like that. I think I'm going to go with that. I think I'm a fan of that. I think, not unlike Hocus Pocus, maybe not to the same level, Michael, been very much embraced by the gay community as kind of an iconic film, a figure of drag, a source of inspiration for Halloween costumes and drag performances across the land.
All right.
Perhaps not to the same degree, simply because I don't think this is as good as Hocus Pocus or has the same occult charm to it, Michael. I think this film is excellent in several ways, but does suffer a little bit from flip-flopping in terms of tone.
Said that. I wouldn't have put this in the same category as Hocus Pocus in a million years. I would have never considered putting this in a category with Hocus Pocus. Immediately, the film that jumped out that this belongs in a category with, for me, is Death Becomes Her, because they share themes. They share themes of supernatural women's desires in the 80s. They feel like Hocus Pocus is a kids' film. It's a kids' action comedy, and this is a black comedy, a black sexual but not exploitative sexual. There's no boobies in this, Benjamin. It's sexual themes but not sexually exploitative as a film. It's got a lot of DNA of Death Becomes Her. A little less broad comedy in Death Becomes Her. There's very little broad comedy in this. And
There's no slapstick, Michael.
No, there's no slapstick. I don't mean comedy about broads, as Jack Nicholson's character would probably say. I mean, there's very little falling about. There's a little bit of falling about at the end, but it's not there. And it's no. Ben, I'm going to flat out say I don't think this doesn't resonate with me. It doesn't ring any Hocus Pocus bells for me.
All right. Well, look, Michael, that's fine.
That's fine, is it? That's all right, is it?
That's
all right. We'll carry on anyway,
acceptable.
will we? Okay.
We will, yeah. We will.
Well, I'm glad.
So, Michael, perhaps the most shocking thing, first of all, this film is beloved by my good lady friend. And
very good.
It was my good lady friend who said, Mom, we watched this. And I said, I've never seen it. And she said, you're in for a treat. And I believe, Michael, being the misogynistic, internally misogynistic man that I am, I came out of this going, very, very awkwardly, the best thing about this is Jack Nicholson. And that's going to get me in trouble, number one. But anyway, the second thing that really caught my attention with this is George fucking Miller directed this. Michael.
George Miller directed this, and now becoming, as I have over the last 5 years, something of a George Miller file. His fingerprint is all over it. Having watched recently both of the recent Mad Maxes and the George Miller segment of the 1989 Twilight Zone movie, the George Miller touch is everywhere in this. This is nothing but a George Miller film. And because George Miller to all of us screams Mad Max, you often miss it. But the bit, for example, where the Lecce principal is giving a speech,
Ah.
and chaos starts breaking down around him. And
Mm.
that whole scene, put that in a post-apocalyptic wasteland rather than a high school football field or whatever it was, some sort of outdoor area. And that was a Mad Max scene. That was
Yeah.
Immortan Joe giving a speech to a bored crowd who have to be there. There's George Miller's characters are
Mm.
always there's no normal people in a George Miller film. Everyone's a bit weird and wonky and unpleasant.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you really see that in this, especially with the couple. The couple, including the woman who doesn't trust them and
Yeah.
her husband who doesn't trust her. Like there's some really violent imagery and really absurd imagery in this that is just so George Miller.
I found that couple are Veronica Cartwright, or sorry, Felicia Alden
Yeah,
and Clyden Alden, or Clyde
yeah.
Alden are their names. The Aldens is who they are, Michael. And one is played by Veronica Cartwright, and the other is played by notable American character actor who pops up all over the place, Richard Jenkins.
Yeah. Now hold on a second. I'm not going to have you skipping over Veronica Cartwright so quickly. All right. Go on then. You're not going to. All right.
No, you go on, you spin your wheels, Jesus.
Veronica Cartwright is the best character in this film. She does
Yes.
an incredible job. She is
Hands down.
amazing in this. That she goes from I know he's not the preacher, but essentially the preacher's wife, to this absolute raving slapstick lunatic, to
Yeah.
even further into the tragedy of that character. And she gives an incredible performance. And Benjamin, she's Lambert from Aliens.
She's Lambert from Aliens, Michael. She was in The Birds in 1963.
Yeah.
She was in Invasion of the Body Snatchers
Which
back
we
in
watched
1978. Yeah, which we watched recently. Veronica Cartwright is movie royalty, B-list horror movie royalty,
Yeah.
A-list horror movie royalty.
She's the
Veronica
A-list of
Lambert's
the
a big
B-list
deal.
movies. Yeah.
Yeah, she's up there, man, and she pops up all over the place. She was in The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. She was in Supernatural once. Veronica Lambert's working hard, ladies and gentlemen.
That's not her name. You've
Veronica
picked up the
Lambert is
character.
her name.
No,
Oh,
Lambert is the
Cartwright.
character.
Veronica Cartwright. Sorry, Veronica Cartwright is working hard, ladies and
Yeah,
gents.
she's great. She's fabulous.
She's
in this.
great, and
Yes.
I think you've hit upon the unnerving quality of her character, because she does begin as the laughing stock of the film. You know, she's a great barometer for the insidious nature of Daryl Van Horne. And what I love about it is when Daryl Van Horne comes to town, it's all grand. It's all fine. It's all a bit of a lark. You know, no one can remember his name. Ha 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 ha. And then there's that one scene, Michael, where she begins to become a little bit unhinged and she falls down the stairs and she snaps her bloody
Leg.
femur.
Yeah, horrible.
And it splits out. And I remember going, oh, Jesus Christ, where the fuck has that come from?
Oh, yeah, holy God. And then she says, I think I might have broken my leg. And it's, oh, yeah, you definitely did. I can see it.
And it's a really important moment because what it indicates is that Daryl Van Horne is no fucking joke. And I liked that. And I really liked that she starts off as this raving lunatic that everyone kind of titters at. But Veronica Cartwright delivers a performance that genuinely gets under your skin by the end of this film.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And
It's really, really good.
Yeah, and has possibly one of the most memorable death scenes I've seen in a film in years.
Oh, yucking up those bloody cherry pits. Gross.
Christ almighty, Michael. And I think a little bit of that hits at what I enjoy about this, Michael, is it seesaws maddeningly at times between light-hearted, sexy romp comedy about female empowerment in the 80s and, oh, Jesus, the devil's a bit of a bollocks, isn't he?
Oh, what a bollocks. He's an absolute bollocks. Benjamin, to go back to that scene where people... That's a real George Miller scene as well, where with the camera tracks the conversation through the party. And as we track the main characters having a conversation, we catch bits of other people having conversations, trying to remember his name. And it's an incredible bit of cinematic artistry. And
Yeah.
I can only imagine the ADR on it was fucking nightmarish to redo.
Nightmare.
But it's an amazing scene. And then it cumulates, which is how you say it, not how I say it. It all cumulates.
town.
It all cumulates. And when Michelle Pfeiffer's character, Suki, she remembers his name and says it out loud, and the pearls burst off. That is a great scene. That whole sequence is fabulous.
But you see, I think this is what I like about it, Michael. I think there's some great scenes here that build suspense in a non-flashy, great way. Because, you know, very often when we're introduced to a dangerous character, especially in an 80s film or a 70s film, the way that we establish that very, very quickly, that they are a menace and a threat, is that they kill someone very quickly when they arrive to town. It's a classic. But George Miller doesn't opt for that, because that's not the George Miller way, you see. What he does instead is he starts to sow these little bits of doubt and stuff. And one of my favorite scenes in this is when Cher goes to the I guess you'd call it the souvenir shop. Yeah, the souvenir shop.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. It's a knick-knack shop full of knickknacks. Yeah. And she sells her Venus statues. And it's
which,
very,
Ben,
very
sorry to cut across you there.
Yeah.
Which we're led to believe that she's hand sculpting each one. Horseshit.
Get out of town.
That's not how you do that. That's not how you do that. They would be cast. But anyway, go on. Sorry.
Yeah. So I think one of the things I enjoyed about that is the woman who's in that, and it's wonderful because this is set in 1987. So there is a bridging here between old Hollywood of the 1960s and 70s and new Hollywood of the soon-to-be 90s and early 2000s. And what I love about it, Michael, is that the woman in that shop, the woman who runs that shop, her name is Mrs. Biddle, I think.
Or something.
And she's played by Helen Lloyd Breed.
Helena Bonham Carter.
And this woman was in all the kind of 60s and stuff. And her acting style is just a little bit old for this film. And she does
he had that man in and he was delivering all of these statues. And wouldn't you know, I've forgotten his name. That was just there.
I'm sure he told me his name. He did. I'm certain of it.
Never did.
Michael, I love that because they do the swervy angle shot of her that jars you automatically, and the wind starts to change again. And Cher is, come on, tell me his name. What did he say? I don't know why Cher is I don't know why Cher is
Goofy.
Liza Minnelli.
I think it was the character Goofy. Come on, Mickey, tell me his name.
Tell me his name. Jerry Seinfeld by way of Goofy. But anyway, Cher will now be played by Jerry Seinfeld in this episode for the rest of it. But I really enjoy those moments where they build that suspense and they push it up. And you know, it's funny. We'll come back to Cher then, I suppose, and her definitely not handcrafted sculptures, horse shit. So her sculptures are an interpretation of a very, very famous sculpture, Michael.
Go on.
Called the Venus of Willendorf. And the Venus of Willendorf is estimated to be the earliest example that we have of human sculpture.
Go on.
And it's pretty interesting. It was discovered in Willendorf, which is it's an area in Austria. And it is a carving of a very curvy and voluptuous woman. Christina Hendricks. And one of the core ideas behind it is that it is a tribute to this concept of the mother goddess or the fertility goddess.
Yeah, go on. I really made myself laugh there with that introduction. Sorry, go on.
That's all right. You're allowed to enjoy yourself on the podcast, Michael.
Oh, no, I thought.
But it's now we don't know, Michael. This happened decades and decades and decades ago, or centuries, millennia, even. Yeah, centuries, millennia, even ago. This was found. Is estimated to be from there, and we interpret it to be the mythological figure of Venus in some form, a mother goddess, a fertility deity, which would tie very strongly back to the feminist themes that are attempted to be put across in this film. Now, we can have a say on whether or not it's achieved that a little bit later. But another interesting interpretation of this, Michael, is because people are a little bit confused about the kind of curvaceous nature of the statue and how it works. But some people estimate that it is a female sculptor who carved this based on looking at her own body without reflection. So she's literally looking down at her body and attempting to interpret the curves that she can visualize from a top-down perspective into the statue, which is the concept of making yourself out of stone, I suppose, or defining your own identity, which is one of the core themes kind of The Witches of Eastwick from 1987.
Is it?
I think so. I mean, look, we can't really go much further, Michael, or discuss those themes without looking at what this is based on. This is based on a 1984 novel by John Updike.
Yeah.
And in that, Michael, in that novel is not the same as this film. George Miller has Millerified this film and this source material to an nth degree.
Yeah.
Some would argue to the benefit of it, because when John Updike wrote this in 1984, Michael, it was a big departure for him as a writer. It focused on feminism, witchcraft, and power, and it tells the story of the three women that we meet in the film: Alexandra, Sookie, and Jane. Sookie! And they discover their powers after meeting Daryl Van Horne. And it touches a little bit on second wave feminism and sexual revolution and owning your body and all that stuff. And that's where the sexual themes kind of come in. But one of the big things is the women don't have any power before meeting Daryl Van Horne. And that's a firm departure.
In the film.
Yeah, that's different in the film. That's different in the film.
Different, Ben. Because in the film, they either summon or potentially even create him.
Yeah, so, I mean, we'll get into that question a little bit later when we come to Daryl Van Horne. But it received mixed reactions.
I mean,
good at that, Michael.
Well yeah, done. I mean, it's a horny film, Ben, but I don't know if I'm that desperate.
Not that hard up, ladies and gentlemen. But come here to me. Updike's novel got a lot of criticism, right?
What's Updike?
Because what's Updike? Very good. Yeah, John Updike, famous for chewing on carrots and befuddling bloody hunters at every turn. Famously, never wrote a novel during Wabbit season. But anyway, yeah, they are dependent on Daryl Van Horne in the book, and that gained him a lot of criticism, I suppose, that he didn't really understand what it was to create an autonomous female character. And this is something that the film goes at great lengths to kind of push itself away from. The witches are independent before meeting Daryl Van Horne. They have a great deal of power. As you mentioned already, we have the scene outside, the suburban nightmare that is the village kind of lauding of... Yeah. But it is high school and it isn't high school, because the town is this tiny little thing in Rhode Island. It's I can't remember what it's called. What's the name of the town?
Eastwick, Benjamin.
Oh shit!
It's called fucking Eastwick.
That's pretty embarrassing for me, ladies and gentlemen. That's pretty embarrassing for me.
What's the name, Ben, of that movie where those three witches live in Eastwick? What was the name of that movie? The Man Who Came to Town, I think it was called.
I've not done well there, ladies and gentlemen. I've not done well there.
But performance.
Piss poor. But come here to me. One of the interesting things about that scene is that the women seem to cause that deluge. George Miller, say what you want about him, loves a fucking deluge.
He does. Getting everyone all wet.
They cause that deluge through sheer boredom. And they do it. And Michelle Pfeiffer's character of Sookie understands that. She is constantly trying to get the women to embrace this kind of impromptu coven that they've managed to gain around each other. And Cher is often, I don't care.
I don't care, Mickey.
I don't care. Gosh, I just don't think it matters. That was a little Jordan Peterson. Yeah. Well, you know, you've got feminine empowerment over here. But then you've got Daryl Van Horne.
Your Cher's going on a real journey, Ben.
And that's a problem because when you see Daryl Van Horne, it's too late. He's over there and he says, "Well, Bucko, I'm coming to town." And it's too late. You can't stop him. That's Kermit by way of George Peterson.
No.
My impressions are not tight today.
They're really wandering today.
Come here to me.
Let's go on.
They have the power at the start of this film, and it is, as you said, they summon Daryl Van Horne, but I don't think that's what happens. I think what happens is Daryl Van Horne senses a great deal of power that he can leverage and goes towards it and convinces the women that you called me here. You did this. But he didn't. I think Daryl Van Horne...
Did. No.
Get the fuck out of here.
I think they made him. I think they made him.
Yeah, go on.
I think he is I don't think he is the devil.
I don't think so.
He might be a devil or some sort of demon or homunculus of some description. But I think that they make him. I think they imagine him into being. Their little session where Michelle Pfeiffer's character, Suke, realizes that they have the power to affect reality because they are witches. And they have this little wish listing session of creating the perfect man.
Yeah.
And they have to justify that it's going to be played by Jack Nicholson. So it's not too handsome. Yeah, all right. That explains how Jack's going to show up. Not too tall. And he shows up anyway and he's hideous. But I think they made him. I think that at the end of the day, he is of their creation, not the other way around.
Yeah, look, I think that becomes more and more apparent as the film goes on. You know, I actually like that interpretation a lot, and I think...
Oh, thanks. Well, I feel validated now.
All right.
No.
Do you want to take a break?
No, I want to keep going. I want to really...
here. What's wrong with you?
Well, look, I'm sick of being taken advantage of by men.
You and me both, sir. You and me both. My eyes are up here, listeners. My eyes are up here.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. He's more than just his body, listeners.
Barely even.
Anyway, what are we talking about?
I think the obsession with birthing children is probably a good example of your theory, in that the more he needs to solidify his existence by procreating or creating a tether for himself in this reality. Do you know what I mean? Through the children. Yeah. I think that's pretty good. I really enjoy that. And I think Miller does a nice job of an arc of female empowerment. And what I like about the arc of female empowerment in this, Michael, is that it's completely ambiguous. I don't think this has a clear good or bad side to it. And the witches remain remarkably ambiguous throughout. They are occasionally forces for good. They do have a moral conscience and kind of recognize that Daryl is their seizing of power and that it may not actually benefit other people, but they don't want to let it go. And they struggle frequently with, oh, maybe I'll just get back into bed with Daryl. Maybe I'll just hop back in there.
Yeah, he's got a medium-sized willy. And, you know, they very happily kill off bloody Veronica Cartwright. Although that is the driving factor for them realizing they're being used and manipulated and turning against them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very interesting. Like, the Veronica Cartwright is an essential character in this.
Best character.
She's I know I said a little bit earlier, you know, she's kind of the barometer of insidiousness in the town of Eastwick. And ultimately, it costs her life at the hand of her husband.
A bit of a dick move, in my opinion.
But Richard Jenkins plays that very well as well. Like, they're in a different film half the time. Yeah, that final scene between husband and wife, Michael, will haunt me, where he has been driven slowly mad by his wife's ravings, where he's just... It's very Poe-esque. It's very Edgar Allan Poe.
It is.
Where
it is. Picks up a poker.
And he just goes, that's enough of that. And we see it doesn't happen off screen, but then he goes back and he sits down and continues to read the fucking paper.
Yeah, like a proper madman.
Jesus.
What I really like about this, Benjamin, is yes, it's like to someone younger than us coming to this for the first time and maybe living in a world which is now 65 years from the sexual revolution as opposed to the 20-ish years it was when this was made, they might not really see the point of what happens in this, where a man comes to town and 3 different women decide to sleep with him. 3 women sharing a man was scandalous when this came out.
Yeah. Yeah.
That scene where they're all in the bed together and he's videoing them. Holy like Dracula and his brides. Like it was the devil and his 3 brides. Incredible scenes, Benjamin. But I mean, this is practically the life story of anyone I know under 25. Everyone's in fucking triples and
quadruples and look, this is of its time in a sense, and I suppose it does reflect that evolving discourse of the 1980s where women start to assert themselves in society. Eastwick is clearly a place that is almost stuck in a Puritan ideal, because that opening scene is essential in establishing what that town celebrates. And that Lecce principle goes on about, you know, the glories of manifest destiny and how they claim the town away from the savages and stuff like that. And that's an indication of what this town actually is. And that's quite Puritanly driven. It's a suburban nightmare if you're a single mother. Those women are outliers already because one lost her husband, one was left by her husband, and the other has just been divorced by her husband. And that places them on the outskirts of the town before Daryl does that. So the inhabitants of Eastwick are only looking for an excuse to fully ostracize them. And their sexy videographic adventures are how that happens. That's the excuse the town has been waiting for to get rid of them. And it is very sexy for the time, Michael. This idea of that get out of town.
It's not, Benjamin. This is from the late 80s. There's very little flesh in this. The most flesh in this is when Susan Sarandon gets a sexy glow up. This is less. This came out around the same time as Bram Stoker's Dracula, for example. And you wouldn't watch Bram Stoker's Dracula with your parents around. Oh no, sorry. This came out 10 years before Bram Stoker's Dracula. But this came out
a bit earlier.
It was a bit earlier, a good bit earlier. But this came out at a time when cinema was a lot more exploitative than it is now. And thematically, yes, very lascivious.
Lascivious, Michael. Lascivious.
No, lascivious. I've made up a word. But in terms of practical what happens on screen, it never gets any less tame than kissing.
Bit of smooching.
Like it's grand. You could show this to children more or less. Not saying you should, but it's not.
No, you shouldn't.
It's not a sexy exploitative film. It's a lot less sexy and exploitative than I certainly remembered it being, having gone through the lens of the 90s and the early 2000s.
Yeah. No, that's fair. It's not as bad as you'd think, Michael. Definitely not.
No. For example, Benjamin, the only, I think, sexy thing that happens is Susan Sarandon's glow up from repressed 1950s housewife to fag smoking tennis mini skirt playing 80s sex pot.
Yes. And even then,
the best bit, let's be honest.
And even then,
it's pretty tame.
I didn't necessarily believe
it.
I
thought Susan Sarandon. So Benjamin, I'm sure you know this, but Susan Sarandon thought she was playing the Alex character until the day of filming.
Oh well, that's awkward.
Yeah, exactly. And she showed up on set, and they were like, "Oh no, Cher's doing that one because she's super famous. She's the Lady Gaga of 1987." And you're the Susan Sarandon of 1987. So you're going to be playing whatever this character's name is, Jane or whatever. And I think, I having now knowing that, I think you can see that suppressed rage and disappointment in Susan Sarandon's performance in the early stages of this film. And they are perfect for the character.
Yeah. I mean, if I thought George Miller was that kind of Machiavellian director, that would have been the way to do it, wouldn't it?
Yeah, she would have been like, I thought I was playing Alex, and he was like, no, it's Miller time. You're playing Jane.
It's Miller time. Use it, Susan. Use it.
Her name is Susan. Benjamin, the least developed of the three characters, though, is Suki.
Oh, she's just there to make babies, Michael.
Yeah, she's just there to make babies, and Michelle Pfeiffer has a ferocious dose of herp throughout this entire film.
Yeah, there's that one scene that's a bit awkward. And they had to write an illness into the film to cover it up.
They did. And cover it up, it does not. Because even when she gets better, she still has 3 cold sores. And watching 80s films with 80s makeup in high definition on modern televisions. Oh, poor Al Fifes was suffering quite badly from cold sores during the making of this film.
So it was painful.
I don't know, Benjamin. I'm not prone to them myself.
Nor am I, Michael. Touch wood.
High five. Well, Benjamin, it's probably that I don't touch that much wood. That's the reason. Hey-o. Hey-o.
But come here to me, Michael. I don't want to move past this.
Benjamin, hold on. No, I have to backtrack from that unintentional slut shaming there. I didn't mean that people who get cold sores are sucking too many cocks. That's not what I meant. It is what I said in the joke, but just to point out I don't believe
it's not what I meant, and that's important.
Yeah.
Michael, I don't want to move past this film.
What?
Without talking a little bit about Jack Nicholson as Daryl Van Horne.
Oh yeah, I forgot he's in it.
Michael, I didn't. Michael, my favorite thing about this film is that Jack Nicholson plays this on a knife's edge throughout the film. And I love it. Never in a million years, Michael, could you have cast Jack Nicholson in something as the sexy lead and had me go, maybe? Because every once in a while, Michael, he does it through words.
Yeah.
And it is one of my favorite representations of the devil, because until the final 10 minutes of this film, Michael, we don't see any great power from Daryl Van Horne. Daryl Van Horne requires the 3 women to gain power, and that's what he's doing. But he is a master seducer and manipulator in this film. And he does it by dripping poison steadily into each one of their ears and giving them the thing that they are missing. And I think it's spectacular in the way that it's done.
You do, yeah. I bet you do.
Shut up, you fuck.
I bet you do. Almost like a handbook in a lot of ways. Is that what you're suggesting?
Get out of here, Neil Strauss and the game. Get out of here.
It is a bit, isn't it? There's a bit of the game. Yeah. There's a bit of just comment regarding gaslighting.
Daryl Van Horne is the 1987 incel template, Michael, in many ways. The outbursts he has towards the end of the film where he kind of loses his temper with Alex. And he's, women, you can't have them, but you need them. And he goes full Nicholson. And I was like, Nicholson said this before. Nicholson has gone over some of the CCTV tapes from his apartment to different women. Yep. And he's watching this because he's a spectacular, grubby little incel at different points in this film.
Yeah.
And it's magic. One of my favorite things about this, Michael, and I'll touch on it very, very quickly because I realize we're chewing up the time here as we go. But one of my favorite things about this is, as I said, he has no real power. It's all dripping kind of, it's silver-tongued, it's illusionary, it's a lot of that. My favorite bit of that is how the house plays into it. The house that he buys and takes over is the first time he greets Alex. He says, "Oh, you were hoping to bump into me," and then he takes her up for lunch. And he takes her into the house, and the house is being redone, and they're adding a wing over here, and my bed belonged to Napoleon. And it's, there's so much Trump-esque opulence to this, short of gilding the toilet in gold in that opening scene. And every subsequent visit to the home after that begins to empty it out. And I love it. And that final confrontation he has with the women and where they're running to try and get ahead of him as he's hunting them down in the house. The house is empty, bar the kitchen, and the kitchen is kitchen is yeah.
Here we go.
I nearly did it. The kitchen is traditionally associated with witchcraft and womanhood. It is
Women
a symbol
belong in the
of
kitchen.
that.
Is that what you're suggesting?
That is not what I'm
you're
saying. You fucking fuck.
The kitchen domain. Is that what you're saying?
Anyway, the house is empty because it was all lies. It was all fabrication to lure them in. And I think that is spectacular work from Miller and the boys. And I suppose it brings us nicely into the end of this film, Michael, because fuck me, that takes a turn for the horror.
Just into a big, huge, giant, grovelly horror man.
That'll stick with you for years.
Completely forgot. So I've only seen this once before, and it was in the 90s, probably on Channel 4 late one night, and I completely forgot that this ends. I remembered all the stuff with the voodoo doll and the blowing him around town, and he vomits up all the cherries and stuff. All stuff I remembered. I completely forgot that he turns into a massive, terrifying claymation Jack Nicholson homunculus monster creature.
Yeah.
Absolutely appalling
He's
stuff.
all...
And so George Miller.
Oh, he just goes full for it then. He's, oh, come on, give me one big giant effect at the end. And he's this plasticine Ray Harryhausen nightmare vision.
It's horrible.
And it's great. And then he's just this weird little homunculus fella at the end. He's a floaty little homunculus. And he just goes poof. And he disappears
away. Because maybe they created him after all, and once they got rid of him, he's gone. But he's not, though. He's back.
That final 20 minutes of the film where he goes to town to get some ice cream, and the women go full witch mode, and they build the little wax figure. But love it because it's Jack Nicholson wandering around the town, being Jack Nicholson. Being like, you got any pistachio? And he's like looking around, he's making polite conversation with the people of Eastwick. It's gas. And then begins the feathering and the cherries and all of that. And it's a great use of practical effects, because I think the practical effects, bar giant Dougly Buggly Jack Nicholson at the end, are spectacular. The cherry death and the cherry curse is the only way I can describe it. Just grotesque.
Absolutely
awful.
Grotesque. It also has some... Sorry.
Go on. No, go on.
No, you go.
No, I was just saying, and they knew they were onto a good one because they use it twice.
Yeah, absolutely. They go do it again. But there's some fabulous practical effects when he's being blown around by the wind as well. That is a very, very convincing effect. Massive fans, I guess, but there's great wire work. You can really tell that this was made by an action director. And was that your kitty cat?
That was my kitty cat.
I thought that was my kitty cats who wanted to come in to say hello. You can really tell it's made by... George Miller is just an incredible director, isn't he? What range?
He is.
Great
he
stuff.
is.
Great
He's
stuff.
fucking
Fabulous.
Great. But Michael, come here to me. I'm going to put it to you here and now, sir.
Oh, go on.
You might have enjoyed this film a little bit.
It was all right, yeah.
You said you didn't at the start, though.
Here's my problem with it, right? Here's my problem with it. The acting is good.
Yeah.
The side characters, Daryl is incredible. I love Veronica Cartwright. Alex, Suki, and Jane. Jane's really the only one who undergoes an arc.
Alex is the same from start to finish.
Alex is the same from the start to the finish. She learns nothing. She improves nothing. Suki is... Michelle Pfeiffer, so if I was the devil, Benjamin, I would try to seduce Michelle Pfeiffer. I don't think you can blame anyone for that. That's fine. But...
You wouldn't, Michael.
She doesn't do anything. He's like, what? Why did he want to seduce her? Only for the power, I suppose.
She's very fertile, Michael.
Oh yeah, that's what it is.
That's what it is. She says to him directly that, all you have to do is look at me and I get pregnant, and he just lights up. He's like,
well, I'm Jack Nicholson, and that was before he even knew they were being filmed. But Ben, the story, oh, my phone's ringing.
Oh, this is awful.
The story, the pacing, the the kind of the plot, the character development's not great. Like, it's not an all-time classic in that sense. It's an interesting one, but it's not an all-time classic. It's not even as good as Death Becomes Her.
It depends on what you're looking for, I suppose. I enjoyed the heck out of it, Michael, for that steady building of the reputation of Daryl. I think those scenes, I think the tension, I think all of that, the practical effects make it into something special, I think. But I understand where you're coming from. However, Michael, speaking of things that have no redeeming features and are a bit shit, you've seen a film.
I've seen Venom: The Last Dance. It's fucking rubbish. Oh, God. So anyway, Venom is back. For some reason. You might remember that at the end of the last Venom, he got teleported to the MCU very briefly.
Just so they could bring the symbiote into bloody
So
Tom
they could bring the
Hollandville.
symbiote on. They deal with that within the first 30 seconds and they say, right, that's over. Fuck that multiverse stuff. And that's barely paraphrasing. And then it's nearly 2 hours of tonally all over the place pointlessness, which we're back in the dark ages of comic book films, Ben. We're fully back. We're back in the bad times. We're back in the times when people thought, just make a comic book film. The fact that it's a comic book film will be enough. It doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to be coherent. Just do a comic book film. And this is not good. It's passably diverting, I suppose. In it's got special effects in it, but the plot it's MacGuffin. It's just a MacGuffin. The villain is nonsensical. The timeline of the whole thing, it seems to take place over a couple of hours or a couple of days. It all feels really, really inconsequential and small, while at the same time wanting to be universe-wide implications. The new characters who are introduced some of them feel like they should be in a different film, and some of them are just the most one note. And I'll be more specific. We'll go into spoilers in a second, but just the most one note poor versions of you banged your mic there pretty loud, Ben. What happened?
Sorry. Didn't mean to do that there, ladies and gentlemen.
That's all right. You just frightened me. They're the most one-note, poor knockoffs of other characters that these same actors have played before. It all just goes pointlessly nowhere for over long. It's not a good action film. It's not a good comedy. It's not a good superhero film. It's very upsetting how poor it is. It's not Madam Web, Morbius, those levels of kind of irredeemably boring. It's not boring, I guess. So, I said it before, it is passably diverting while it's on, but it's about nothing, and nothing that happens in it matters, and nothing is learned or gained from this existing, sadly.
Michael, that sounds awful.
Yeah, it's not good. It is not good. It is a bad film. Written by Tom Hardy.
What?
Yeah, so he has a story writing credit for this. It's like story by Tom Hardy. So it seems to have been written by Tom Hardy's understanding of the Venom character, mixed in with a little bit of Sony's now trademarked abortive, furtive attempts at building a universe, which is a terrible combination. It's a terrible combination of trying to be an intimate buddy cop story about Venom and Eddie Brock's last dance, and at the same time Sony trying to build it into an extended universe. We'll get into spoilers a little bit because there's some things that
let's do a spoiler version because I want to know.
Yeah, so the long and short of it is, Benjamin, not much time has passed. Less than a year has passed in the Venom verse since the first one. So this is a direct sequel to the last one. It starts with him in the MCU, and then whatever happened there, he gets kicked back out. So this was the post-credit scene, I think, in Spider-Man No Way Home that brought Venom into the MCU. And then he gets kicked straight back out, and don't worry about that. None of that ever happened. So instead, we get a intro scene focused on some lank-haired, pale-faced guy on a planet of symbiotes sitting on a throne, which is also some sort of prison. And we're introduced to... It's Null, Benjamin. We're introduced to this character of Null. And Null is the only resident of Clintar, which is the symbiote's home planet, or a prison that the symbiotes made for Null when they turned against him. And Null wants to get off that planet. So
As
he
you
has...
would, I suppose.
Exactly. So he has other servants, his kind of replacement for the symbiotes, the xenophages. And they're the big alien dragony monster things that you see in the trailer. And they have one purpose, and their purpose is to hunt down the Codex. And you're saying to me, Benjamin, the Codex, Superman's DNA from Superman Man of Steel, that could be used to rebirth Krypton. No, not that Codex, Ben. In this one, the Codex is the Codex, which is the only thing in the universe which can unlock Null's prison. And the Codex is formed, believe it or not, if a symbiote and a human merge, and then the human dies, and the symbiote brings them back to life. That creates the Codex.
That's very specific.
It is very specific. And bet you know who that's happened to? Exactly. Exactly.
It's to Tom fucking Hardy.
Tom Hardy, Venom. It's happened to Venom. So they send these things after Venom. And at the same time, while these things are after Venom, Chiwetel Ejiofor is after Venom as well. Now, you might remember...
What's he doing there?
Very fucking little. You might remember Chiwetel Ejiofor had an incredible performance. His breakthrough performance in the film Firefly as the operative, a mysterious government operative who was sent to track down the crew of Firefly to get their secrets and prevent their secrets from getting out. And he essentially plays that character, but this time worse and boring.
Oh, no.
Yeah, terrible use of him. And he works with two characters, two lady scientists, one of them played by Juno Temple, who is an incredible actress and has no business in this film, and the other one played by Letterkenny's Clark Bacco, who I think we most recently seen in that Brazilian Banshee film. Yeah, bizarre. Absolutely bizarre. She's fine. She does a fine job, but there's two lady scientists and they like the symbiotes, you see. And oh God, I don't even know why I'm I don't
Michelle
know
Williams still in it.
No, she's gone. Don't worry about that. I don't even know why I'm still telling this story. Anyway, Venom is trying to do something or go somewhere. It kind of never really dawns on you what anyone wants in this film. Chiwetel Ejiofor's character seems to want to control the symbiotes until something else happens, and then he wants revenge on the xenophages, I guess. And Venom wants to go to New York to clear his name, I think, but then also has to get away from the monsters because of the Codex. The monsters want the Codex, but they can only see the Codex. That's the only thing they can see. So if Venom and Tom Hardy separate, they're invisible to the monsters. Except when they're not.
Awful MacGuffining.
Oh, terrible. He goes to Vegas for a while and has a song and dance number, and I watched that going, Deadpool has a lot to answer for. Deadpool has a lot to answer for. So the most egregious thing about this is the family. So there is a family of UFO enthusiasts, and the patriarch of the family is played by Rhys Ifans. Wales' own Rhys Ifans.
The lizard.
And the lizard from this fucking universe. The lizard from the Sony Spider-Man universe. Why? Why not anyone else? Why not literally anyone else on the fucking planet. And he is a hippy dippy alien conspiracy theorist man. And he's bringing his family to see Area 51. And guess where the final showdown happens to happen? In Area 51. So the family. So Venom, Tom Hardy, Venom, Tweedledee Vijayfer, and his special operatives, the two lady scientists, all of the other Venoms, and the xenophages, all, what's the word I'm looking for? They all
Converge.
pile in, converge. They all converge on Area 51 at the end. And there's a big bust up. And you're just watching it going, who is on whose side? What are anyone's goals? The family are here so that Venom has to try and save someone, I guess. So we've been subjected to them for 20 minutes of the film's runtime so that there are civilians in the final battle. But then why set it in Area 51 if you wanted to have civilians for Tom Hardy to save at the end? It's all over the place.
Messy, Michael.
Oh, it's so messy. But so also just kind of sad and disappointing. And they're trying to build Null up. And anyone who knows the Venom comics knows Marvel fell in love with Null
Yeah.
10 years ago and made him their next big bad guy. And they're really, you can feel the Sony, the levels of Sony specific desperation off of casting Andy Serkis as Null.
Oh, is he Null?
Yes, barely. He's not really in it. He's in the intro and the end, basically. And he never leaves the throne because he's foiled.
Oh.
So he's very much introduced as a Thanos-like character.
Yeah,
he might as well say
Thanos.
Yeah. No, Thanos. It's specifically Thanos.
Oh, okay.
They might as well have him at the end stand up and say, I guess I better do it myself, but in a creepy, spooky, Venomy way.
Okay. That's so disappointing, Michael.
No, it's not. Because I was going to see it. And as I went in and I sat down. I went with Wednesday Night Cinema Club, Benjamin. You were invited, but you said, fuck that. I'm not going to see Venom. And
you went on a Sunday night, first of all, Michael.
Yeah.
Wednesday Night Cinema Club, me.
It doesn't matter what night you go on. Anyway, I went in and I sat down. And as it was starting, I thought to myself, this is the comic book film I know the least about that I have seen in 15 years. I have no idea what's going to happen in this. I didn't know Juno Temple was in it. I didn't know Clark Bacco was in it. I didn't know Tweedledee Vijayfer was in this. And he appeared on screen and I went, the operative! It's the operative from Firefly. What's he doing here?
It's that guy from Firefly. Mr. Pressure Point himself.
Yeah, he killed me with a sword, Mal. It's rubbish. It's absolute rubbish.
That's disappointing.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the end of that, thankfully.
Speaking of bizarre creatures coming to Earth on a mission from a higher power set to destroy it, I've read Absolute Wonder Woman #1.
Oh, very good. Go on.
Yeah, so this is set in the Absolute Universe, Michael, which is DC's version of the Ultimate Universe at this point. It's their hard reboot, reimagining of their core universe and ideas in its own,
not knocking off the core universe at the same time. Keeping it parallel.
It's in its own bubble. It's in a bubble, Michael. And this is pretty interesting because we were meant to review 2 weeks ago or last week, Michael. I can't remember now. Absolute Batman #1, and that was very good, Michael, for several thousand reasons. And this one comes to us from Kelly Thompson and artist Hayden Sherman. And Michael, it's very, very good. It's a very interesting reimagining of Wonder Woman, and it's kind of important to understand what's going on with the Absolute Universe. I think when we talked about the Ultimate Universe back in the day, Michael, the idea was, grim, gritty, realistic superheroes. And that's actually not what's happening in the Absolute Universe. The Absolute Universe is a bizarre universe that Darkseid from the main DC continuity.
Oh.
Yeah. Darkseid has... I don't know. I can't be sure if he's killed himself or was killed, but he has intentionally removed himself from the DC main universe continuity, and in doing so has gone in search of a universe outside of that. But not only a universe outside of that, Michael, a multiverse in its infancy.
Mm.
So a whole new thing. And what he does is he finds this and he takes it for himself. And he forges the universe in his own image. And so the idea of the absolute universe, Michael, is that it is a universe in which hope, resilience, and heroism are not the defining driving forces of the universe, but rather adversity, hardship, and just grit
Mm.
are the driving forces behind it, because it's Darkseid, and Darkseid exists in a kind of Darwinian might makes right kind of survival of the fittest mentality. That's his ethos, that's his philosophy, and that's what's driving the universe. So what we're getting, Michael, are famous DC heroes without their advantages in life. They've been stripped away and given a new set of circumstances under which to become heroes.
Go
In the
on.
case of, go on. In the
That's
case
much
of
more
the
interesting
absolute,
than the Ultimates.
it
That was a
is.
shit. Yeah, go on.
It is. In the case of absolute Batman, that is stripping away his wealth. So we have a
Oh,
universe in which Batman hasn't got a ping and rua to rub together, Michael.
Neil
And
Ain Pig and Rua air on Batman.
egg Bruce Wayne. And he's
He's still
famously known,
Bruce
Michael,
Wayne,
as
is
the
he?
he's still Bruce Wayne. But there's a
Right.
lot of things played with in that mythos, Michael. And one of the very interesting things that they do, the writers are really swinging for it here, Michael, because no matter how many times we've gotten Batman, we always draw back to a core image: a snapped string of pearls, a
Mm.
gunshot in an alleyway, and a lonely
Yes.
boy. And Michael,
Yeah.
it just dispenses with that completely. And spoilers for Absolute Batman #1, but his mother's still alive. Martha Wayne
Oh,
is a functioning, existing character in the world of Absolute Batman.
she's grand.
She's not grand. She's an impoverished working class woman living in Gotham, which is
Oh,
a fate possibly worse than death, Michael.
sounds grand to me. It's normal life.
But
You sure
Bruce
you're not
Wayne,
describing just the real world?
yeah, Sheriff Street on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
But in that same vein, Michael, we are presented with a brand new vision of Wonder Woman. And one of the things that I've always struggled to relate to in terms of Wonder Woman is the idealism and virtue of Wonder Woman as a character. So she is a princess of a mythical island of Themyscira. She is raised by the Amazons to be practiced in virtue and right and justice and all these things, Michael. And it's a
Mm.
famous thing of, she's raised by a village, the Amazons all band together. We see it a little bit in that now less than good film that we all lauded once upon a time, Wonder Woman #1 with Gal Gadot. Um, we saw it then, and that's what we got. She's naive. She is, she doesn't understand why the world isn't all roses and justice. It doesn't make sense to her. In this, Michael, it snaps that immediately. So it opens on hell or Tartarus or the afterlife, the Greek afterlife within the DC universe. And we see a woman sculpting something out of clay.
Oh,
And we go,
that's Wonder Woman usually.
it's
That's
the
Wonder Woman.
classic.
It's
And then
Cher.
Michael, it's Cher, yeah. But
I'm
Michael,
gonna
there's
make a little Wonder Woman. Jesus.
I'm gonna make a baby.
I'm gonna make a little Wonder Woman. She's gonna go out in the world. She's gonna teach people about justice.
And Michael, there's a fabulous rug pull in the first thing, and spoilers here, but none other than Apollo comes down
Oh,
to
that
this
prick.
woman, taps her on the shoulder, and hands her a baby. So it's a complete rug pull from the start, Michael. She's not a perfect woman formed from clay. She is an existing baby that's handed. And we find out that the woman who is being spoken to is Cersei, who is famously a villain for Wonder Woman in the classic continuity, but not now. Now she is told, this is a baby from the Amazons. The Amazons have been punished by Zeus because they were blasphemous and they did not follow his decree, and they decided to make their own world. So it's a very classic interpretation of Greek myth in that Zeus is an absolute prick.
Oh, real dick. Apollo Benjamin, the superhero or the god?
No, the god. The god.
Okay.
He's a sun god in this. And the Amazons have been raised from the earth, R-A-Z-E-D, not
Oh, no.
R-A-I-S-E-D. And Diana has been spared and given to Cersei. And Cersei is given one edict: keep the child alive. And she says, what happens if I don't? And Apollo says, I don't care. I don't know. I don't care. And then, Michael, we get to see Wonder Woman raised in hell, essentially. And Cersei originally just says, oh, well, fuck this. I don't want to be a mother. I don't want any part of this, which is a very realistic response for a woman who's been spurned by the gods and then given a task by them. You would actually go, no, fuck the gods.
Benjamin, I don't know if you could apply the term realistic to that sentence, to be honest.
I will apply the term wherever I choose, Michael.
You very well may.
I'm going to say exponential in a moment just to piss you off. But what happens is, Michael, then one of my favorite things happens, and a snake slithers up to Diana in the crib and is just about to lunge at her, which is a reinterpretation of the Hercules myth. This is how Hercules is identified as a demigod in Greek mythology. And she does the exact same thing. She grabs it and flings it. And it does one of my favorite speech bubbles of all time. And I will forever, I will be seeking out more of the artist Hayden. What's her name? Oh, I can't remember.
Panettiere.
No, it's not her. Stop that. It's
Christensen.
Oh, I'm gonna have to, my laptop has just told me it's not plugged in. That's awful news.
Oh no, Benjamin!
Hang on.
This could go sideways at any minute.
At any minute, and that's why we're desperately rushing to stick the
Everyone's
power back in
podcast.
there.
Every podcast is someone's first podcast.
Ah,
Don't
look,
be worried.
Michael. Sure, at this point, they're all new. Hayden Sherman, sorry. If one of my favorite things ever, Michael, is as the snake is chucked away, it's a fire snake as well. It's made of magma. It's very cool. My favorite thing happens, Michael, and as Wonder Woman flings the snake away, there's just a tiny little bit of classic comic book onomatopoeia that says yeet. And the snake gets yeeted out of the picture. I really enjoyed it. But anyway, over the course of her time in hell, Michael, she has sent thousands of enemies that try to take her out as she grows older. And Cersei teaches her magic to defend herself, and she also is an Amazon, so she's capable of doing this. And at the same time, Michael, this is all narrated by Cersei, and it has some beautiful kind of themes running through it. And Cersei quite often says, to raise a child is to learn to love it. And she explains, you're not born loving children. Like, you don't love a child when it's born. You come to love a child through raising it, through the bond that you form with it. And the core message of it is, you also have to make sure you prove your love by letting them go. And that's it. So it's a nice theme throughout the thing. And Zeus has banned the word Amazon. And if you've been watching Agatha all along on Disney Plus, Michael, it functions as a bit of a sigil. It's a banned word. And the only person who can say it, Michael, is Diana. Diana seems to have the ability to say the word, and she constantly asks Cersei, Mother, I have a word in my head that I want to say, but I don't feel I can say it. And Cersei is always kind of encouraging her to get the word out, but she's never ready to do it until the end of the comic. And this has all been interspersed with Diana coming to Earth in a classic monster design from the 1970s Silver Age, Michael, in what's known as the Harbinger. He's a big, red, ugly-buggly monster with laser eyes, and he comes from an inverted pyramid that floats in the sky, and he's preceded by thousands of tiny little demonic harbingers. It's fabulous Silver Age stuff, Michael. It's great stuff. And Diana makes her great entrance into Gateway City, and she arrives, and she takes on this beast. And the beast thinks that she's just a defeated warrior, and we realize at the end she's this kind of demonic, witch-imbued creature. And it's fabulous because Cersei explains, you prove your love by letting them go, but you arm them with weapons made of teeth that will rend. And it finishes with Diana kind of flying in the air. She hasn't flown for the entire thing. She uses a skeleton horse Pegasus to do that breathes fire. Cool. Fabulous stuff, Michael. Scott Schneider must be reading this and going, I should have done that for Dark Knight's metal. Oh, fuck.
Oh, that's way more metal than what I did.
It's fabulous. And she stands, Michael, and she has this flaming red version of the lasso of truth. And it's, Michael, I enjoyed the fuck out of this. I thought it was a great reinterpretation of the character. I thought it was a fabulous look at it. She's lost her community. She's had to thrive for herself. She is a warrior through and through by survival, not by carefully taught lessons and kind of Socratic truths and stuff like that. I thought it was excellent. I really, really enjoyed it as a comic. I think the Absolute Universe is going to be fabulous. Oh, she has a big like anime style Final Fantasy kind of cleaver-esque sword.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's class. It's class stuff.
Benjamin, I don't think we have time to talk about trailers again.
Well, yeah, we got 2 really cool trailers, Michael. No, but I don't think we do have time.
Fuck it, let's give them
right.
2.5 minutes each. Taika Waititi's back, Benjamin. He's doing Chinatown Internal. Is that what it's called?
It's called Interior Chinatown.
Interior Chinatown. Chloe Bennett's back, Benjamin.
Chloe Bennett's back, Michael, playing the same character she plays in a lot of stuff.
In Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Yeah, she is. Do you think she's going to be Chloe Bennett or Chloe Wang?
It's take your pick. Take your pick, Michael.
It feels like Chloe Wang might be more fitting for this. Anyway, she appears to be some sort of FBI agent, and she's coming to Chinatown, and they're going to solve Chinatown-esque X-Files-y SCP mysteries, but with Kung Fu.
Yeah, so this is pretty interesting, Michael. This is based on a novel by a guy called Charles Yu. It's called Interior Chinatown. No, not Charles Yu. No, Yu in this particular case. And it's a short read. I recommend that you give it a go. I'm reading it in anticipation of this at the moment, Michael. And it's interesting. It's a meta text. It's set as the name might suggest. Interior Chinatown is something you might read in a Hollywood script, Michael. It's a setting prompt.
I get it now. Interior Chinatown. I get it.
Yeah. And it is a meta text on the pigeonholing or typecasting of Asian characters in dramas and the pigeonholing or typecasting of Chinatown as a setting.
Excellent.
Yeah. And that's really important. And it's kind of a look at the different ways in which Chinatown has been represented. So I think this is going to be kind of a Don Quixote style exploration of Asian perception in America. I think it's probably going to be a really cool look at different genres and how Asians are cast in those things. The cast is phenomenal, Michael.
Go on.
Overall, I need to pull it up here. And it's comedic. I think it's going to probably enter into that new genre that was kind of defined by Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is Asian American surrealism or Chinatown surrealism, if you want to look at it that way.
Behind that.
Yeah, and I will get behind that. I'll enjoy that. And so the main character is played by Jimmy O Yang. We've seen him in the likes of Crazy Rich Asians, classic. We've seen him, I think, in he's a voice actor a lot in Minions and stuff like that. But he pops up in a lot of stuff, Michael. He's a character actor in a lot of stuff, and he's been given the main role here. And he was in Space Force. I don't know if you watched Space Force, Michael, but he was in that.
I saw a few episodes. It's fine. And
yeah,
comedian, isn't he?
Yeah, and then Ronnie Chiang is in it as Fatty Choi. He's the other guy who works in the restaurant with him, and he's kind of encouraging his bro to do better in life. I enjoy that kind of buddy cop stuff. It's enjoyable for me. And then, of course, Chloe Bennett is there as her name is Detective Lana Lee. Michael is
very interesting. Very interesting choice to cast Chloe Bennett in a meta text about Chinese representation, because Chloe Bennett is Chinese, or at least half Chinese genetically, and we know Americans are obsessed with genetics, but famously had to change her name to Chloe Bennett to get any work. And
did she?
Yeah, that's the whole point. She was Chloe Wang when
good.
she was. Yes, she's a very interesting case because she was Chloe Wang and she was a pop star that was popular in China, but she had to change her name essentially to Chloe Bennett to get work in America, and got work mostly as Caucasian, because she passes the wrong word, but she can pass as Caucasian. And if people show up and say, "Oh, we're looking for an all-American girl, Chloe Bennett, she's your gal." She's a really weird. I kind of hope that that's the point here, But then they all see her and immediately go, "Oh, she's Chinese. Oh, she's Vietnamese. Oh, she's Thai. Learn your Asians." It's a really interesting meta text around Chloe Bennett and her own. Her real name is Chloe Wang. Chloe Bennett's her professional name. I hope they get into it. I really do. But also, I don't trust Taika Waititi, and it's very interesting that this is brought to you by Taika Waititi, the director of Thor Ragnarok, not Thor: Love and Thunder.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm going to give him one more chance, Michael. Yeah.
Under the rug.
I'm going to give him one more chance here, Michael, because if he fucks us on this,
then he's in the bin.
But this is funny because this is a culturally sensitive topic, and I don't know if Taika Waititi can get away with Waititiing it because it's a bit dodgier here. This is going to require finesse, which is not something he's shown to have in the last couple of films.
Yeah, very interesting. And he's not even remotely Chinese, Ben.
His last one, which was Maori Lads Play Football with Michael Fassbender for some reason, was fairly hammered in terms of Maori representation because he made Maori people the butt of all the jokes.
Yeah, but that's fine because he is part Maori.
You see, that's the thing. But is it fine, Michael? And that's where it gets interesting. You can get away with that maybe if you say, "Oh, but I'm Maori."
Yeah, well, you can't.
What if?
Because we'll find you out, Ben. To be honest,
you can't. Well, you can't do it the other way around, can you? You can't say, "Oh, well, I'm Asian," because you're fucking not, are you? Well, maybe he is. Maybe he's 1/16th Asian.
What do we know? Anyway, Benjamin, Severance is coming back for season 2, and Severance is the Backrooms now.
Yeah, and they've replaced all his pals. They've replaced all his pals. Yeah,
new pals.
And creepy jailer is back. Creepy office jailer is back.
Yeah,
and look, we didn't get much in this, Michael. It's a teaser trailer at best, best. But I can't wait to see it. Still one of my favorite series of the last 10 years, and will probably remain so, Michael, if this comes out and does well. Just a fabulous cast, fabulous bit of work. Nom, nom, nom. Ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
We've run out of time for another week.
Oh my God, we're just hammering through it.
The tragedy of it all, ladies and gentlemen. But come here to me. If you've made it this far, you like us. You really like us.
Or you just had it on in the background while you were making dinner.
Or you've fallen asleep.
Wake up!
Or you're mining this for material to cancel us. all of which are possibilities. But in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, you've made it this far. Why don't you follow us, subscribe, give us a review wherever you're listening. Leave us a comment. What did you think of the episode? What did you think the most interesting part of all this was? Let us know down below in the comments.
Michelle Pfeiffer's cold sore.
What did you think of that? Was it gross and weird? Did it fit thematically? What was going on? Come here to me.
What? It's on the other podcast, Ben.
If you haven't had enough of us this week, ladies and gentlemen, you might enjoy listening to our other podcast, which dropped just yesterday at the time of recording, Collecting Issues, where we took a look at James Tinian Ives
and my jokes, I see.
Alvaro Martinez Bueno's The Nice House in the Lake, collecting issues 1 to 12 of that. That was our October read. And, Michael, I don't mean to toot our own bloody horn.
What?
But the artist of that comic, Alvaro Martinez Bueno, bloody shouted out the episode and put it up on his socials.
Oh, no.
Got us 2 new followers, Michael.
Oh, that's the worst thing that could have happened.
Don't notice us, Senpai. Don't do that.
Oh, no.
Don't do that. But go on.
Did we say anything rude? I hope we didn't say anything rude.
I listened to the episode again. We were very complimentary.
Okay.
But
Benjamin, you don't think Susan Sarandon's going to share this episode, do you?
Fingers fucking crossed, boys. I'm going to tag everyone. I'm going to tag Cher.
Yeah.
But here, come here to me, Michael.
I think I might share this episode.
Well, hey.
On my socials.
There's Jordan Peterson. And then you've got Cher. And she represents an accomplished woman. Yeah. And then, look, Michael, you can find all that linked down below in the description. You can join us next week on this podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to pitch this to Michael live on air.
Oh, duck. Right, I'm ready.
Maybe we'll do peak Venom, Michael, and try and wash the taste of Tom Hardy out of our mouths.
Who told you about that?
Very good. We're launching a new series next week, ladies and gentlemen, called The Peak.
Oh.
Michael has turned his classic marketing wizardry on it. And we're taking a look at one character represented in comic books or movies or TV series, but one that gets different representations of him over
cool.
time
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah,
animation, video games, and
I remember
etc.
this idea. Yeah.
So we're going to kick this off, ladies and gentlemen.
Ben.
With... Yes.
It's not though. Hold on, just to get this right. It's not the peak.
No.
It's just peak. It's
Peak. Sorry.
Venom.
It's just peak Venom. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're kicking November off with peak Venom. But that's not all, ladies and
Fuck a
gentlemen.
duck, really?
If you don't feel like listening to peak Venom, we are going to be doing midway through November a classic quintessential episode. And you'll be able to get your thinking caps on. It's going to be on noted science fiction television extraordinaire series, Farscape.
Oh, Farscape, fabulous. This is very exciting.
And
oh, fuck more.
At the end of November,
yes,
we're going to be taking a look at a classic sci-fi romp from Joe Dante, Inner Space.
Inner Space, Benjamin. At the time where we had to pull the plug on the poll in order to watch the stuff on time to make this episode, Witches of Eastwick was winning. But between then and date of publishing, Inner Space absolutely fucking hammered Witches of Eastwick. Not our fault. It had a late surge.
It was a late surge. We don't count votes after the deadline, ladies and gentlemen. It's not our fault. However,
we don't say when the deadline is, though, either. So it kind of is our fault in a way.
We do apologize, and it's going to be the movie for November. We won't even put it up to a vote this time, ladies and gentlemen.
Very good.
But Michael, that's it from us this week. Bye-bye.
All right, see you. That was a long one. Bye. Have a nice Tuesday.